Welcome to the Jay Kim Show. This is your host, Jay Kim. I am an investor, author, and fitness entrepreneur, and for the first time in Asia, I sit down with the world's most brilliant minds in business, investing, and entrepreneurship. You'll learn all the secrets, strategies, and formulas to becoming a successful entrepreneur directly from the masters. If this is your first time listening, thank you for stopping by. This podcast is produced every week with the goal of providing actionable insight to you, the listener, with every single episode. And now, onto the show. Today's guest has one of the most incredible startup founder stories you'll ever hear. His name is Shing Chow, and he is the founder of Lalamove, formerly known as EasyVan, which is one of the most prominent logistics platforms in the world. Widely known as the Uber for logistics, Shing's Hong Kong-based tech company puts tens of thousands of delivery vans, lorries, motorcycles, and trucks on its platform for on-demand deliveries that match users and drivers across Asia. Lalamove currently operates in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Bangkok, as well as 50 cities in mainland China, which is estimated to be a $1.7 trillion market for logistics. The company recently closed a $30 million Series B round and is well on track to becoming Hong Kong's very first unicorn. But what I think you'll really appreciate is hearing Shing's personal story, which is how he quit his prestigious job being a strategy consultant at Bain, one of the top consulting firms in the world, to pursue professional poker. He used his poker winnings after 7 years to then fund his startup, which became EasyVan and now Lalamove. Very incredible story. Shing also provides a lot of insights and advice for anyone trying to enter the tech startup scene. So let's jump right into the show. I think you guys are going to get a lot of value out of this episode. Hi Shing, how are you? Thank you so much for being a guest on the Jay Kim Show. We're very excited to have you here. For our audience listening in, can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do for a living?
Sure. My name is Shing, and I am the founder and CEO of Lalamove. So what Lalamove does is essentially get anything delivered inside a city within an hour using an app. So that's what we do for a living.
Okay. It's basically like I've heard it being called like the Uber for logistics or Uber for Hong Kong delivery.
Exactly. So that's how we pitch it to our investors sometimes.
Right.
So it makes it easier because it's relevant to something that is really big, Uber. So
Right.
we are kind of the Uber for intra-city delivery.
I see.
But we are also kind of the fastest delivery company in the world. Our average delivery time is 46 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So that's a lot faster than any company on the planet right now.
Fantastic. So why don't we take a step back? And because I think a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs would love to hear sort of how your entrepreneurial journey and how you became successful and started your company. So maybe we can start there, and then we can dig into a little bit further on the specifics of your company. But I would love to hear your personal story if you don't mind sharing.
Not at all. So I graduated from Stanford in 1999. So that's right before the internet bubble of 2000. And at that time, I wasn't into internet. I wasn't aware that internet is this big wave that is going to change not only our daily life, but a lot of the other industries. So I, after graduation, came back to Hong Kong, went consulting for about 3 years. So in 2002, I got bored, and so decided to, because consulting is a fun industry if you're really into giving advice to big corporations, but I kind of want to make my own calls.
Right.
So do you play poker, Jay?
I don't really. I know how to play, but my wife actually is a big poker player, so she would actually appreciate your story.
So I basically started as a hobby, but then I believe at that time that I can actually turn it into a living. So I quit my job at Bain and started to play poker professionally for 7 years. And during that 7 years, I basically made enough money to be financially independent. But it was a pretty long journey because in the first 4 years, I wasn't actually very successful. I was barely breaking even. So it's kind of after 4 years, there's this like 10,000 hours of practice, right? So after 4 years,
Right.
you accumulated kind of enough practices on the game. So that's when it took off. So from barely breaking even to making $1 million a month, that's kind of where the point come after 4 years. So and anyway, so after
Wow.
7 years, I made enough money to be financially independent. But poker in the end is a zero sum game. So if you have to win, someone else has to do this. Actually, it's a negative sum because the casino, the house has to take
Right.
a cut. So I don't want to spend my life essentially on something that is just zero sum. So I wanted to do something that's create value. And so in 2009, I quit poker and started to find a project that I can kind of dedicate my rest of the life. And I searched it for about 4 years. And essentially, at the end of the day, found this particular segment that I believe will be a golden area for me to explore. And that's how in 2013 October I decided to start Lalamove.
Okay, so this is fascinating because you graduated from one of the top universities in the world that is well known, and you were working for one of the best, most prestigious elite companies in the world, Bain. And uh, when did you pick up poker? Like, how did you learn about poker? Were you casually playing as from a young age, and then you just decided? What was that thought process like? Because I think that a lot of smart people, you're obviously smart. I feel like a lot of gamers, they always have this dream like, oh, I can do this for a living. I have a lot of close friends that love to play blackjack, and they think that they can do it for a living, but they can't.
Yeah.
So how did you learn how to play poker, and then how was that whole transition process where you were confident enough that you could make a living off of gaming?
Actually, anything that you do as a hobby, if you want to make it as a living, that's hard. That's very hard. Usually, very hard.
Mm,
For example, from soccer and kind of
right.
sports, that you can do it as a hobby, but if you want to turn it into a living, that's very hard. And actually, if you ask me, I there wasn't a lot of the thought process. It was just kind of an instinct or something that I'm passionate about. So at that time, I was just playing poker nights and days. So I decided this is something I really want to get good at, and this is something that I really like to do. So that's how I went to it. As I look back, right? So sometimes you look back and then you kind of figure out why you try to, or how that had become successful.
Hmm.
And I kind of boil it down to APP, so ability, prospect, and passion.
Mm,
So if you want to create a success out of something that you do, you have to basically have the ability to do it well. That thing has to have prospect, and not only you have to have the ability, but you also have to like to do it. You're passionate about it. So, for example, a consulting is obviously something that has promising prospect.
right.
And I believe I actually have the ability to do it well, but just not something that I wake up 5 a.m. in the morning. I just want to jump into. So for me, poker was that something that I want to wake up every single day, not even brushing my teeth, and just went right into it. So for me, that was kind of very passion driven, but it turns out to have something that has prospect, and turns out something that I have ability in. So, but the other two was just kind of luck, just dumb luck. So I was just driven by passion at that time. I was young, so I didn't know what's the framework to think about major decisions like this.
Right. And obviously you knew that if you had to, you probably could go back and get another job, whether it be Bain or another consulting gig or somewhere else in traditional industry. And
That's true, but it's. I was thinking after 4 years, I don't know whether I can actually get another job. 4 years of actually not doing anything but gambling. Don't know whether someone would hire me.
true, true. That would be a challenging interview explanation.
Yeah, that was a tough point. I mentioned the first 4 years I wasn't actually making money.
Hmm.
So, but interestingly, I never thought of giving up. So I was just imagining after 4 years, at that point, if I had given up and I had to look for a job, would anybody hire me? And that I think would be a challenge.
What was the discussion or conversation with your family, your support network, your friends, that sort of thing? How did that conversation go when you
So I hide it from my family, my parents, because I know they won't support it,
right?
and basically they will be sad to hear that kind of that this is choices I made.
Sure.
So I hide it until I quit, and
Mm.
so with my friends, they think it's cool. So
That was easy.
so don't have to hide anything from my friends. But my parents, I know, very traditional, right? So
Right.
they have a kid that's doing well in school, went to top college, was working in a decent job, and so they want to give up everything to do gambling. So that's very hard to
Sure.
explain it to them. So I decided not to explain.
Yep.
And that's you can call it a white lie. I think it's a lot better than and then obviously I come clean after I quit, and once I learned that you can actually make a living out of that and quite success, and I have actually become quite successful at it, and I think they can accept it, but not when it's under so much uncertainty, right? So I mentioned 4 years without when I was still struggling. So imagine I have to kind of explain it to them during that 4 years struggling years. That would be not a very happy situation.
I can't imagine that. I mean, it's always, yes, you're right. It's always better to ask for forgiveness than for permission, especially from conservative parents. But yeah, 4 years of grinding it, that's impressive. Okay, so after you said 7 years, first 4 years was a grind. The next 3 years you were quite successful. You made a lot of money, and then you realized that maybe you weren't fulfilling a big picture desire or need in the world, right? So you decided to search for a company to start. What was that process like? At that point, after 7 years, you said, "Okay, I'm done with poker. I want to do something else." How did you identify, I guess, Easy Van, which is what it was known before Lalamove, right?
Yeah, so I actually just went about looking for different industries, and for example, I was actually into investing,
Hmm.
so I was looking through different listed company to see if there's any inspirations from anywhere. And I actually started some companies. I started beauty clinic in Hong Kong,
Okay, sure.
and I started some retail shops selling organic stuff in Hong Kong. So I was
Hmm.
just not only looking, but I was also starting. And then in late 2013, I heard about Uber. So it's this amazing company that is growing tremendously in the States, and I looked into it. And I at that point, my first instinct was actually doing something similar in Asia, but then I turns out that there are many other people already doing that.
Right.
So I was asking. So that's a very good idea. Obviously, using mobile internet to connect demand and supply, right? So
Hmm.
one is the rider, one is the passengers. Can I apply that similar concept to elsewhere? And it turns out that in Hong Kong, that was already a business model that connects the shipper and the van driver.
Right.
So we call it a call center. But instead of using data to do the matching, they use a voice. So if you were to get a van in Hong Kong in the past, you call a call center,
Hmm.
and the call center will actually shout into radio to get you a driver, and the driver, after getting the information from voice from the CS center, would actually call you up and pick up your goods. So that's how it was done for almost 20, 30 years in Hong Kong. So that was a proven business model,
Right.
sharing of vans for intracity delivery. We just take that model and make it digital. And we are actually not the first one to do actually make it digital. There was already someone else, actually two other companies from Hong Kong doing that. So it was kind of an easy decision that this is something I think would work. And it's just a matter of not only taking this model and making it digital, but actually replicating that elsewhere in Southeast Asia and also in mainland China.
Right. So one of the things that you've spoken about in the past, and David, our mutual friend, has also talked about when he looks to invest in companies is this idea of Hong Kong founders, and you're quite international. I mean, you're educated abroad, so you have a larger global perspective. But a lot of Hong Kong founders, the challenge is that they are too closed minded with expansion, right? And so they think, I mean, obviously it's important to dominate your home market first, but a lot of them stop there. And from an investor standpoint, it's if it's not scalable beyond one city, and Hong Kong being one of the harder cities to start a company just due to the high fixed overhead costs associated, it's not that attractive. So at what point did you realize that there was proof of concept that this business model would be scalable within the region?
Actually, from the very start, I knew I want to make this at least a regional or global, or at least very, very at the minimum a regional company, because I believed in mobile internet world there is no city-state internet company. So you have to scale it beyond a single city to be successful. And for that particular reason, Hong Kong is actually a particularly bad place to start a company in a way, because Hong Kong market is unique. And when you're unique, that means whatever works in Hong Kong may not work elsewhere.
Right.
So that's bad, because if you start something from, let's say, San Francisco, you can replicate that into New York because you have a very homogeneous market.
Right.
Same thing in mainland China. Something that works in Shenzhen or Beijing will work in Wuhan or Chongqing. So you have a much bigger domestic market. And that's why if you look at the top internet companies in the world, they're all coming from either China or the States. And so I knew that if I want to build a kind of a great internet company, I have to absolutely look beyond Hong Kong to do that. So even within 7 months, we started in Singapore, and within a year, we are already in China. And right now, we are actually in 76 cities already.
So, 76 cities within the region.
Yes, in 3.5 years. So I knew from day one that I need to do it regionally at the minimum, if not globally.
That's incredible. So as someone, I mean, you had basically no background in logistics, right?
Yeah, I have no background in logistics. I have no background in management, or I have no background in the tech.
So this is awesome as well, because I think it's inspirational. Whenever I meet and I speak to founders that basically are non-technical founders or choose to tackle an industry that might be very difficult or technical or complicated that they have no background in or no connections in, and it just makes their story all the more impressive and inspirational. What would you say were the hardest challenges at the very beginning when you had this idea? You knew it could be something big, but you're sitting there and you're like, okay, Shing, I have this great idea. You're saying to yourself, how do I execute? Where do I even begin?
The first step is hire the right people. Since I don't code, I knew that I have to get an app on the App Store. So just hire someone that can make it happen. So in first week, we actually put together the tech team. So I just interviewed tons of people using headhunters. And essentially, I just asked them a few questions. Actually, 2 questions. I show them a competitor apps. Can you do that? Can you write this app? And second is, can you finish this app in 4 weeks? So in a month. Third is, can you start tomorrow? So if they say yes, then I just hire them.
Wow.
So that's essentially what we did. And I think that's a bias to action is very important in the very beginning. So a lot of people think, this idea, I have that idea, but when you ask them to put into action, they never do it, right? Just a lot of people, they have a lot of theory on how to get fit. They might even know eating the right stuff and exercising is the right thing to do, but they're just most people actually never take actions.
Right.
So I think we have this bias. Actually, I have a co-founder, Matthew, started this with me. So both of us have a lot of bias to action. So sometimes, obviously, we make some dumb mistakes, but that's a lot better than not doing anything and sitting there and waiting for a perfect solution.
That's right. So tell us a story about EasyVan, like the name, and then at some point you changed or you relabeled it as Lalamove, right?
Yeah, EasyVan. We started in Hong Kong. We focused on van, so we were trying to come up with a name that is easy to remember. So EasyVan was easy to remember. That's how it got started. And later we expanded out of Hong Kong, and in a lot of cities in Southeast Asia, our main vehicle that we went into the market was motorcycle. So Easy Van wasn't an appropriate name.
Right.
So we're trying to come up with a new name, and we want something that is easy to remember. Because a lot of our new users actually coming from referral. And if someone have to refer you, they have to refer by name, right? And that name has to be easy to remember. And we think Lalamove is something that if you come across, it's pretty hard to forget. So that's how, and it also rhymes with our Chinese name, which is Hualala. So that's how it came about.
So it was also very strategic.
Yeah, naming is very important because if, as I mentioned, 50% of our users actually coming from referral, and sometimes it's just not online. A lot of times referral happen offline. So if you want to recommend a software, recommend an app, recommend a brand, if you don't remember, it's pretty hard to remember to recommend it.
Right.
So naming it is important.
Very important. So you started off the company Bootstrapped. It was just all your own poker winnings, I guess. And
yes.
And at what point did you decide that you needed external funding?
Actually, I was pretty naive when I started. Obviously, just like everybody else, I thought it was just an app. How hard could it be? Right. So to this day, even people ask me how many people I have. I say I have 700 to 800 people now working in the company. Wow. They say, well, why do you need so many people? It's an app, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously, I was that naive too. I thought internet company was easy, just an app. So you just need a few guys, right? And I actually didn't know that I would be needing a lot of capital. So I thought 2 million Hong Kong dollar was enough. Mm-hmm. So that was what I put in. I thought 2 million was all I need. If I use up 2 million and I was still a failure, then just call it a day.
Right.
And then a few months into the adventures, I knew that I needed a lot more than that. And I put in $10 million. Hong Kong dollars. Mm-hmm. And then I realized later on that 10 million Hong Kong is not enough. I need 10 million US dollar. And that's when I started to go out and fundraising. And now, obviously, I knew that 10 million US is not enough. I need 100 million US. And that's how I go out again and raise fund. So I think one of the key trait of being an entrepreneur is continuing updating your your sense of the world. So sometimes there are things that you think is the case, but it's actually not the case. And you have to realize that quickly and make adjustment. For example, funding-wise, I was pretty naive. I was pretty naive in terms of building a decent tech team to actually make the company work. So a lot of times things I don't know, and you have to learn it quickly so that you turn some of the unknowns into knowns.
And that's good advice. I think that it's always a challenge. I mean, entrepreneurs or startup founders, they're always faced with there's a lot of ego sometimes that you have to battle with yourself, because as a founder of a company, there's a certain level of expectation, especially when you go in front of investors, that you have to know your entire market and your business model and everything down to a T. But a lot of times that's not the case, especially for founders that enter an industry or a segment that they don't have any experience prior to. Then they need to reach out and partner with the right types of investors to actually take them to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about how you guys are looking with your regional expansion. You mentioned you were in 76 cities. Is that right?
Yeah, 76.
So where is your largest market currently?
Right now, our largest market in China, it is Shenzhen, Guangzhou, and then in Southeast Asia is Bangkok.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. And what sort of expansion plans do you have for 2017 as far as extending that reach?
We are going to make it at least 100 cities in the region. So that's our plan.
Any specific cities that you are targeting aggressively for this year?
The new cities we open office, for example, in China, we are already in the major cities, right? So these are the top tier cities is where we're going to put a lot more resources into. But I believe a model would actually work in a lot of the second, third, or even fourth tier city. So we set 100 cities in China, so including Southeast Asia, which is going to be 10, at least 10 more. So it's going to be, by the end of the year, it's going to be 110 cities. So we believe our model will actually work in cities with about 4 million populations. In China, that even the 100th most populated city has 4 million populations.
Right.
So that's how we set it at 100. And in Southeast Asia, we haven't been to Malaysia, we haven't been to Indonesia, and then we haven't been to Vietnam. So these are the cities that we will likely be in by the end of the year as well.
Lots of opportunity. And what was your experience specifically expanding into China? Because this is a challenge for many. I mean, even the likes of Uber, the great giant Uber that went in to China, tried to steamroll their way through, and essentially failed because they either didn't have the right partner or they didn't really understand the market before they tried to enter it. So, what was your experience with China expansion?
So I think one thing is determination. We actually chopped the company in half, and one team focusing on Southeast Asia and one team focusing on China. So we are separate product, we are separate tech team, we are separate HR, finance, marketing, ops, etc. in China. So we built a separate team just for China when we went into China. So that's the determinations, and all some of us actually come from Hong Kong and went to live in China, and I think that's the determination that makes a difference. And when you China is a big market, right? You can't go into that market half-heartedly, and that's our approach. So we chop the company in half and make sure that we have dedicated resources for the biggest market.
That's always the challenge is it seems to on how to figure out China, and a lot of people really need to rely on good local partners or investors that will help guide them navigate through those through China.
I think one thing is mental, right? So if you don't believe you can do it, likely you will not be successful in doing it. Day one, we are pretty committed. We say either we make it or we die. And so all of us moved to China and just just be very determined in making it happen.
And you are doing a very good job there, Shing. So that's awesome.
So far, so good, but it's never end. I think we are having decent year so far, but internet things can turn so quickly that you could be gone if you make a major mistake.
This is true. Very true. So you guys just did a pretty big Series B round, right?
Yes.
And so congratulations on that. And I think one question that many listeners will probably be looking for an answer for is, what is the future funding looking like for Lalamove? Will Lalamove be Hong Kong's first unicorn valuation company?
We are trying to be the first one. If not the first one, maybe one of them. And we believe we have the right team and we are in the right market to make it happen. And our goal is to do it within a year or two. So I think that's our target, and whether we can accomplish it, I think it boils down to us executing. So pretty optimistic.
Yes, I am too, and I'm very excited I'm looking forward to watching your success, and I'm rooting for you because I'm a fan of Hong Kong founders that are successful, and I think it'll be very good for our city and for the ecosystem. So, Shing, thank you so much for your time today. I just have a couple more questions to ask you, and I mean, you've obviously have a very very unique story and have experienced a lot of success thus far, and we wish you the best of success in the future. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to aspiring startup founder, maybe here in Hong Kong that wants to get into wants to build a business, a company from the start, given your experience on how you navigated those early days, what piece of advice would you give?
I think it is biased, have an extremely high bias for action. So just don't think too much. And in the beginning, it's a lot of trial and error. For example, when we build a team, we don't necessarily get the top quality people to join us, but we need to get the product out there. So you can't really sit there and wait for the perfect candidate to come along. And so we just do whatever we can to get the results we want. And our result at that time was getting the app on the Play Store. And in the end, it took us about 8 weeks to get there, but slightly below my target of 4 weeks, but we still get there. So have a bias for action. I think that's important. A lot of people just sit there, think too much, and that's not a style. And second is really think through if you want to take on this journey, because it's actually quite hard, and most of the time you're guaranteed to fail. You look across, right? A lot of people, the success is actually the exception, and a lot of times it depends on luck. I believe we have quite a bit of luck. Our first funding was quite easy, but the second and third funding, if we didn't get it, we would have been dead. And it was just, I believe, by luck that, for example, MyWorks really believe in that, so they put in the money when nobody else did. And AppWorks, another VC from Taiwan, they also believe in us when nobody did. So we were twice, kind of 2 months away from bankruptcy, and we got saved. We got saved just by luck. So imagine you put in all the work, but then at the end of the day, you got nothing. Is that something that you're willing to accept? If you are willing to do something because it's going to be successful, then I actually advise you not jump into building an internet company. Building a traditional business is okay. For example, if you want to open a clinic, open a restaurants, that's what I call a business, a very proven business model. And if you, let's say, open a restaurant, it's the 10th best restaurant in the city, you will survive, right?
Right.
But in internet, it's actually a tournament structure. It's the Olympic structure. I call it the Olympics for business. It's only the first one that anybody would care, and it's the first one that actually would take the most payoff. So everybody remember who built this, but nobody remember who runs second.
Right.
And I think that's the same thing in the internet. So it's a lot more brutal. So make sure that you're ready for the journey if you want to do it. And I believe actually most people aren't.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like a high stakes poker game, Shing.
True. High stake poker tournament game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Shing, where's the best place that people can find you, follow you, or connect with you on social media or your website if they want to learn a little bit more about Shing or Lalamove?
We have Lalamove Facebook. I have a obviously Facebook page, but I actually don't spend a lot of time on social media. Maybe I should. What's the usually best way for people to broadcast about themselves? Twitter or Facebook, or what would be your suggestion?
Well, I'm not a social media expert by any means, stretch of the imagination, but I'm sure your investors are just fine and happy with you focusing on the company and growing it. So I'm sure you can find someone else to deal with your marketing.
Yeah, I actually want Lalamove to be high profile, but I want myself to be low profile. So Lalamove should be a lot more famous than I am.
Awesome. All right, Shing, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I think our listeners are going to really enjoy this interview. So we appreciate all the words of wisdom and for sharing your personal story with us as well.
So thank you, Jay.
All right. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. All the show notes and links can be found over at jkimshow.com. Come back often and make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Don't forget to join us next week for another exciting episode of The Jay Kim Show. I'd love to hear your comments. You can find me on Twitter at jaykimmer, JAYKIMMER. See you guys next week. This podcast is brought to you by Hack Your Fitness, the high achiever's guide to getting ripped in under 3 hours a week. If you're anything like me, you're probably working a full-time job or jobs and trying to find time to balance family life, social life, and last but not least, fitness. Look, I get it. I'm a full-time investor and entrepreneur myself, and father of 2. So how am I able to stay fit year-round without spending hours and hours in the gym killing myself on the cardio machine? After struggling for the last 15 years trying every workout and diet under the sun, I finally designed a system that allows me to achieve and maintain single-digit body fat for life in under 3 hours a week. Cardio not required. Head on over to hackyour.fitness and download my free 13-page guide that teaches you the simple science behind efficient fitness and smart nutrition and gives you everything you need to know to finally take control of your life. That's hackyour.fitness.